Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Adil.
Good afternoon.
Please wait for a minute.
Yes, yes.
Can you, Karuna, sorry, Karuna, could you please start?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Karuna Jadhav from Naval Institute of Management Studies and Research, Pune, Maharashtra. I welcome you all in today's third session of day 2 of ATAL FDP on structural modeling and artificial neural network in management research. Today's third session is on mediation and moderation and interaction effects. And our guest speaker for this session is Dr. Mohd Adil. I'm very happy to introduce him as Dr. Mohd Adil worked as an assistant professor in the Department of Management Studies, NIT, Hamirpur, Himachal Pradesh. After doing his MBA, he earned his PhD from Aligarh Muslim University. He was the recipient of prestigious fellowship, JRF and SRF from UGC India. His teaching and research interests broadly lie in the areas of marketing management and the consumer behavior, with special emphasis on consumer perception, ethical consumption, service quality, and self-service technology. His present research focuses on diffusion and adoption of emerging technology, sustainable marketing, tourism, and hospitality. Dr. Adil has, to his credit, several publications in very reputed journals like SCI, SSCI, and A+ and A in ABDC index journals such as International Journal of Hospitality Management, Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services, Business Strategy and Environment, Journal of Ecotourism, International Journal of Quality and Service Science, Journal of Islamic Marketing, Journal of Quality Assurance in Hospitality and Tourism, among others. He has also presented papers in international and national conferences, which includes American Marketing Association, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, IIM Calcutta, IIM Kozhikode, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He's also, during 2020, he received a Best Paper Award. Besides being on the reviewers panel of reputed A+ and A grade journals of Palgrave, Macmillan, Elsevier, Springler, and Grant, he has also reviewed chapters for research methodology book, Business Research Methods by Cooper and Schindler, published by McGraw-Hill. He has successfully worked on externally sponsored projects from central government agency. His most recent accomplishment was the granting of 2 patents by the Commissioner of Patent, IP Australia, that's Australian government. One in smart agriculture, and the second is in using blockchain technology to control counterfeiting in the aviation supply chain. His research-related visit had been to several countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Thailand. Lastly, I would like to thank the esteemed organizer of this FDP for providing this opportunity to introducing the speaker of this session. So, on behalf of you and on behalf of Department of Management, School of Management and Business Studies, Jamia Hamdard, New Delhi, in collaboration with AICTE ATAL, I, Karuna Jadhav, request today's speaker to enlighten us with his knowledge and expertise in this area. Will you all participate in a very thought-provoking session?
Okay, well, thank you, Karuna, for the lovely introduction. Okay, so let me. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so before we start with mediation and moderation, it is pertinent that we must have a fair understanding as to what is the importance of mediation and moderation in today's life, especially in the field of social science or per se management. I was talking to one of the faculty from IIM the other day, and he actually helped us recalling as to, if we go back to the year 2005, at that point of time, most of the publications were around regression, ANOVA, and even PhD used to be granted on the basis of ANOVA regression. Although the concept of structural equation modeling, if we try to track its root, it goes back to 1980s, mid 1980s or something like that. So it took somewhere around a decade or two to reach to India. So probably after 2010, you will start getting some publications that revolves around covariance-based structural equation modeling. And slowly and gradually, we started seeing a debate amongst the researchers that, and they came up with a new type of structural equation modeling. I mean, there are two types of structural equation modeling. One is the PLS-based SEM. The other one is the CB-based SEM. So initially, we started with CB. And at that point of time, one of the most popular software used to be IBM MS. So during 2010 to 2013, 2015, you will get a number of publications which actually have used IBM MS and to run structural equation modeling. But slowly and gradually, if you try, we are in 2021, and if you try to go deeper into some of the databases and you try to dig out some of the recent publication, you will realize the fact that structural equation modeling in isolation, individually, it won't help you in getting your publication. So what is the solution for this? So now, in fact, reviewers, editor-in-chief of top-tier journals, now they have started recommending that you should use mediation and moderation in your model. So in fact, he explained one of the example wherein some of the reviewers, they have questioned that from where you got these variables. So I mean, this is quite habitual for us that, and it is in fact easy, convenient for us as like going into the literature and digging out some 4, 5, 6, 7 variables, and then we build certain relationship between them, and then we run it, and then we get certain results. Now the question that arises, because I could see that some of you are research scholars, some of you are obviously must be faculty. So the very basic questions that arose was from where you got these 5 or 7 variables. How did you identify that these 7 variables are important? Because if you go and scan through the literature, you will get 50 or hundreds of variables. So why these 7s, or why these 5 variables? So recent publication, if you go by some of the recent publication, we will realize the fact that researchers, they are now introducing a number of things in order to get their publications published, manuscript accepted. For example, some top tier journals, they are actually urge the researchers to go for multiple studies in their research papers. Then there are certain level of journals who actually recommend researchers to come up with several mediator or moderators, or even a fusion of both. Then we could also see that there are certain publications that are coming up with, they are going for experimentation. So study 1 could be experiment, and then study 2 will be the survey on the basis of whatever we have obtained from the experiment, from study 1. So probably the results of study 1 would help us to conduct a study 2. So that's how I mean, journals, people, editor-in-chief, they are recommending the usage of mediation and moderation in your papers. Now, having set this background, let's start with the PPT. So yeah, so I was saying that from where you got these variables. So this was the question actually, and then the faculty member from IM, he said that now they are suggesting that we should come up with qualitative techniques in order to identify as to what all are the prominent variables that could be used in our say manuscript or in our thesis. So there could be a phenomena, and we may have 50 or hundreds of variables, but how did we identify that these 5 or 7 variables or 10 variables would be prominent? These are the prominent variables, and they are going to explain the phenomena. How did we arrive at this particular decision? So for that reason, they are suggesting that we should go for some qualitative techniques in order to identify the variables. I'm not saying that I'm trying to establish certain relationship between independent and dependent variables or per se. I'm simply saying that how we actually identify a particular set of variables that need to be supported by certain qualitative techniques. There are n number of techniques. Most popularly are fuzzy, DMATL, HP fuzzy, and then on operations field, people are still using TISM, MTISM, which was actually proposed in the year 2017, and most recent is, I guess, MTISM-P. So there are n number of, techniques, qualitative-based techniques that actually helps us in identifying as to these variables are prominent from that perspective or not. Then comes the second stage of developing the model and establishing the relationship between one variable and the second variable. Okay, so moving on to understand what mediation and moderation is. So we are going to understand some basic conceptual understanding of both the terms, and then we will try some experiments using the IBM SPSS, MOS. Okay, so as we have seen that interest in mediation and moderation over the period of time has increased. So from 1981 to 1993, it was 43, and over the period of time, it was increasing, and it ultimately reached to some 2010, 2015 to 2,598, close to 2,600 publications were in and around. Either they have used mediation or in moderations or both. So before we start understanding and running the software, there are several terms that we must understand, and they are going to come repetitively throughout the PPT. So indicators, most of us, we use survey method to collect data. So those items that we place in our questionnaire and then we approach to respondents to collect the data. So those are the indicators. So indicators, whenever I say indicators, actually I'm referring to those items that we actually include in our questionnaire. Then endogenous constructs, exogenous construct. In short, we can understand that endogenous is nothing but the dependent variable, and in case exogenous is nothing but independent variable. And whenever we talk about mediation, there are 3 terms that are most important actually. One is the indirect effect. The second one is the direct effect. One is the indirect effect. The second is the direct effect, and then we have a total effect. So always remember, indirect effect, it simply means that there is something in between the 2 variables. So indirect means if we are trying to establish a relationship between, say, independent variable, independent, and this is dependent. So indirect means we are going through via something else, and this is actually M. Here we have M. So this is indirect effect, and it has been defined as are those relationships that involve a sequence of relationships with at least one intervening construct. So one intervening construct is nothing but the mediator that we have actually introduced into the model. We will see at a later stage as to why there is a need for mediation and what would happen if we introduce mediator variable. Then we have a direct effect. Direct effect are the relationship which links two construct with a single arrow. We have a single arrow. This was independent variable. This is dependent variable. And then we have a single arrow which actually establishes the relationship between the two. So direct effect, when we try to establish a relationship between independent and dependent. Indirect effect, when we try to reach to this place from independent to dependent via the mediating variable. Okay, so yeah, then mediating effect, mediation model, and mediator variable. It could be defined as a situation in which one or more mediator variables facilitate the explanation of the relationship. It explains the relationship between two or other variable constructs. So mediator, it explains the relationship. So either we call it mediating effect, either we call it mediation or mediation model. So it basically helps in explaining the relationship between what? Between the independent and dependent. And then moderating effect, moderation, be it moderator effect or moderator variable, it occurs when the effect of one latent variable on another latent variable depends on the value of the third variable, which is referred to as a moderator variable. We will see to it at a later in whenever I'm going to discuss about moderation. So let's start with the basic understanding of mediation. In simple terms, a mediating effect is created when a third variable or construct intervenes between two other related constructs. So we have one construct here, one construct here, and then we are introducing a third variable, which is called as mediator. So the moment we start introducing a mediator, this becomes indirect, and then, yes, this will be a fit case of mediation. Now, for a variable to qualify as a potential mediator, it must be located between the predictor and the outcome, between the independent and the outcome. So mediator must be placed somewhere in between the independent and dependent variable, or talking in terms of structural equation modeling, so exogenous and endogenous variable. So according to the theory, the predictor must precede the mediator in some clear manner. Predictor, that is the independent or exogenous variable, must precede the mediator. Then mediating effects highlight the distinction between direct and indirect effect. So this is what we have actually seen previously, that what is direct effect, what is indirect effect. So mediating effect, we will try to analyze on the basis of the direct effect distinction. So difference between direct and indirect effects. Okay, so direct effects are the relationship linking two constructs with a single arrow. Indirect effects are those relationships that
Sir, you are not audible, I suppose. Dr. Adil, you're not audible. He's joining again. Please wait.
In the meanwhile, please, if you haven't downloaded the dataset, which he is going to just work upon. Please, we have mailed you the data set. Please download it from your mail, or say you can use it from your WhatsApp also. Wherever you just find convenient, just download it from there. Just be ready with the data set. There's some technical glitch at the end of the resource person. He's trying to just resolve it out. So we are sorry for the inconvenience.
Yes, Nilakshi. Do you have any question, Nilakshi? Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay. So actually, I was continuously going on with the PPT, and I thought that I am connected. Right now, I realized that I was disconnected somehow.
No, you were disconnected for a long time actually.
Yeah. Yes.
We have been trying to call you, but your mobile
I
was
don't.
switched off.
I don't know. I mean. Okay.
Sir, can you start with direct and indirect effect, please? Actually, वो skip हो गई चीजें बीच में.
हाँ, मैं वहीं से करता हूँ.
Mediation and direct and indirect.
जी, मैं वहीं से करता हूँ. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I was disconnected.
No issue. That's the beauty of technology.
That is a side effect of technology, because I have gone. So just let me know which slide I was.
We were done with this thing.
We were done with this one. Okay. So we were about to start this one.
Participants,
Let me know.
participants, please respond so that Dr. Adil can continue.
Dr. Adil, I think if you start with your third or fourth slides, it's better because you are disconnected in the initial stage.
Oh, this is the third or fourth.
Yes, we have discussed key terms and
Yes.
Yeah. Through key terms, I was requesting for direct and indirect effect, if possible, sir.
Yeah,
This
here.
was the slide that we were actually discussing upon, and the first two paragraphs were done. We started with the third one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so once again, mediating effects highlight that the distinction between direct and indirect effects. Okay, so we have to take out the difference between the direct and indirect effect. Okay, so direct effect, we have already seen what direct effects is, what indirect effects are, and ultimately, actually, okay, so this is a say pet figure for mediation, wherein we have one variable as mediator and we have one independent variable and one dependent variable. So indirect effect is a sequence of two or more direct effects. Indirect effects here is a sequence of two or more direct effects. Now, from where we are getting two direct effects when we are talking about indirect effects? So these two direct effects are actually K to M. This is independent, this is dependent. And then M to E, M becomes independent and then E becomes dependent. So path A and path B, these are actually our two direct effects. So thus an indirect effect is a sequence of two or more direct effects and is represented visually by a multiple arrows. The following diagrams show both direct effect, that is K to E. So whenever we are talking about K to E, this is our direct effect, and an indirect effect of K on E in the form of K to M and M to E sequence. So it's very important to understand what indirect effect, what direct effect is. So direct effect, in a very layman manner, let's understand that the direct effect is nothing but the relationship between independent and dependent variable. And this has been shown through K to E. K to E. But the moment we start talking about indirect effect from K to E, it goes through K to M and M to E. So this is called indirect effects. We are actually reaching to E, but via some other intervening variables that is called mediator. Hope this is clear, because ultimately the whole mediation actually revolves around these two things only, the direct effect and the indirect effect. Is it clear? Am I connected?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hope these two things are clear, that yeah, okay. So now you might have a question as to why we should have, we need actually another intervening variable or the third variable between A and B, or say between independent and dependent. Now this slide is very important for that perspective, because from a theoretical perspective, the most common application of mediation is to explain. Mediation, it actually explains why a relationship between two constructs exists. It helps us in explaining as to why there is a relationship between say independent and dependent variable. So we may observe a relationship between constructs, example K and E, and not know why it exists. We can then posit some explanation in terms of an intervening or facilitating variable. Directly we can call it mediator. So we can then explain it with the help of mediating variable, which operates to take input from K and translate them into output E. Here M is the intervening variable. It is the third variable that we have introduced it into our model. Otherwise our life would have been very simple. Like, we have independent variable, we have dependent variable, we could have gone for regression, we could have gone for the relationship. But this will not, this relationship, the relationship between the independent and dependent variable, this is not going to explain us as to why some sort of relationship exists between these two. So for that reason, we need another variable that will be introduced in between these two variables, and that is going to be called as mediator. Okay, so the beauty of mediator is that it takes inputs from K, that is independent variable. It takes inputs from independent variable, and then it does not hold it with itself. Rather, it transfers it to what? To the dependent variable. So either we can directly go to this place. I mean, this is dependent variable. So we can directly go to this dependent variable. So that will be called as direct effect. But when we are actually introducing another new variable to, and that's two in the middle of these two constructs, so obviously the mediator that is going to take certain inputs from the independent variable, and that is going to be reflected into dependent variable. This is something very important. This is important. So first thing that we can draw from this particular slide is that mediator actually helps us in explaining as to why a relationship between two constructs exists. Now that is the reason why most of the reviewers and editor-in-chief, they are recommending that you must come up with mediation and moderation, because we may have some sort of relationship. कोई भी variable, if you're going to put any variable k, e, f, f, g, any variable, you will get some sort of relationship. You will, either it is minus, it is positive, it is either it will be significant, it will be insignificant, some sort of things will come. But we will never know as to why this sort of relationship exists between independent and dependent. And for that reason, actually, mediation and actually comes into picture, and it helps us in explaining why there is a relationship between independent and dependent. So here we are going to take an example. I hope this is going to make more clear as to what or how mediation actually works. So here K and E again refer to the same figure. Here we have K, here we have E, and M is mediator. Remember this thing: K is independent, E is dependent, and M is mediator. So here the construct K could be a student's intelligence. Now here we are going to name the variable. Earlier we were discussing in K and E and M. Now we are going to name it. I mean, yeah. So this is a student's intelligence. K has been explained as a student's intelligence, and E, our dependent variable, could be classroom performance, a student's classroom performance. So we could have directly gone for a student's intelligence, trying a relationship between say a student's intelligence and his classroom performance. But again, the question is that how it works. Can we explain how students translate their intelligence into performance? Now this is a key question, like how a student is translating his intelligence into his classroom performance, because it is assumed that a student with higher intelligence will perform better in his class, in his exam. This is our hypothesis. So we may find that sometimes a student exhibits high intelligence. He may have high level of intelligence, but does not always perform well. So at times his performance does not match to his intelligence, his level of intelligence. And at times we see that some students with lower intelligence scores perform extremely well. So is there some other process going on? Is there something hidden behind these two variables that actually works, that is invisible, that need to be explored? Okay, so is there some other process going on that translates student intelligence into actual classroom performance? Question mark. So then we can think of a mediator. So in this case, we could propose a construct termed study effectiveness. Here we are introducing M, which is study effectiveness. And how can we say define study effectiveness? So study effectiveness is nothing but the ability of students to focus their efforts on their classwork, organize their class related and other activities to provide them with sufficient time to complete their homework and the other good study habits. So there could be a relationship between intelligence and the actual performance, classroom performance of a student. But still we are unaware of as to what is the how actually translates intelligence translates into actual performance. So study effectiveness has been introduced as mediator, and study effectiveness is the ability of the students to focus their efforts, the efforts that a student is putting on his study, so on their classwork, organize their class related and other activities to provide them with sufficient time to complete their homework, and other good study habits all are these part of study effectiveness. So if a student is intelligent, this quality may encourage. Which quality? I'm talking about study effectiveness. His organizing his class related activities, his focus on his classwork efforts. So this quality may encourage the student to study longer and better, which could result in higher classroom performance. Now this is say a deeper understanding of why K has been translated into E. It is the effort. So study effectiveness. So in such a case, the significance correlation between K and E would be explained by K to M to E sequence of relationship. And therefore, we can say that the study effectiveness mediates the relationship between students' intelligence and classroom performance. So this is the basic conceptual understanding of mediation. And for testing mediation, we generally refer to the seminal work of Barron and Caney. They have actually proposed the idea of how we can calculate mediation and moderation, and that's too in the year 1986. And this is one of their highly cited work as well. More than 1 lakh citations they have received. Are we still connected? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah. So testing for mediation. So Barron and Kenny, they have suggested that like in this case, you see that there is no mediator. So X to Y, and then this path is C. This path is being denoted with C, and with mediator means indirect effect, and then we will have a series of relationships, A, B, C hash, something like that. So what they have suggested, I mean, Barron and Kenny, they have suggested like that we can run mediation analysis in our model using these 4 steps. Although there are several criticisms to their steps. I will discuss them at a later stage, but let's understand as to how can we run mediation using Barron and Kenny's method. So they have simply suggested 4 steps. So step number 1, they say that okay, this is our independent, this is our dependent. So the very first relationship that we need to establish is between independent and dependent. And they say that it should be significant. So the relationship between independent and dependent, step 1, this should be significant. If we get significant result, then okay, then let's move to the step number 2. Step number 2, it says that X to M. X here is the independent variable. M here is the mediating variable. And then we are going to establish a relationship between X and M. If we get this value as significant, then we are going to move to step number 3. Step number 3 says that M to Y. M here is mediator and Y is dependent variable. So we are referring to B here, B. Okay. And then in step 4 is between X and Y in the presence of mediator. This is going to be called as C hash. Now, there have been criticism like Professor Hayes and Hare et al. They have actually raised several concerns with respect to the method that have been proposed by Barron and Kenny. They say that 2 direct effects cannot give us indirect effect. Okay, effects cannot give us indirect effects. And in short, what they have actually summarized it like, if your initial relationship between independent and dependent, if it becomes zero, means that if it becomes insignificant, then we can say that there is a case of full mediation. So Professor Hayes and Professor Hayertal, they have made our life very easy, because they have divided mediation into two. Either it will be a case of full mediation, either it will be a case of partial mediation. So full mediation, when the relationship between X and Y becomes zero or say insignificant, and this relationship via mediation is significant. So the original relationship between X and Y, that is independent and dependent, becomes insignificant, and with the introduction of M, that is mediator, and if the relationship via mediator remains significant, then in that case, this is a full case of full mediation. This is a perfect case of full mediation. But at times we will see that the original relationship between independent and dependent, it doesn't become insignificant. Rather, there is a reduction in the value. Okay, so in that case, our mediation, that is indirect effect, is also significant. Our direct effect is also significant. So in that case, we can say that there is that the mediation is partial in nature, as the direct relationship has not become zero, or has not reduced to zero. So directly coming to the analysis, so I hope that you might have received the data set. Can we start the exercise?
Yes, Dr. Adil, we can.
Yeah. It's a heavy software, so it will take some time. So are you ready with the data set, participants?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So we have these variables with us.
Ritika, is there anything you want to ask?
No, sir.
Okay. Please.
Okay. So I hope you have this data set. So there are several questions. I have removed their labels, and then in fact, just to teach you, to explain you how mediation is being done. So what I did is that I have computed them. The indicators have been computed into variables, and then I have renamed them as mediator, exogenous, and endogenous. So for that, what we can do, we can start with MS. Okay. Hope all of you are following me. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Only Komal. Okay. So once this MOS window is open, so what we can do is that first we will go and select our file. Mediation dataset. Yes. Press OK. And this is selected. Yeah. Now we have all those indicators as well as variables. Is it done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next what we can do, we can open these variables and then directly we can place all our variables. For example, exogenous, so it should be placed here. We have endogenous placed here. Mediator placed here. This is how we have seen in our say PPT. Yes. Independent, dependent, mediator. Similarly, independent, dependent, mediator. Okay. Is it done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are going to place the linkage, the arrows from exogenous to mediator, from mediator to endogenous, and then from exogenous to endogenous.
Dr. Adil, there is a question in the
Yeah. Asad, your mic is off.
Sorry, Dr. Adil, the question is in the chat box that it would be a rectangular or ellipse.
Variable. No, it will be rectangular, like this one. Because I'm not including the indicators. No, if had I gone for indicators, then at that point of time I might have gone for like this one, and then I could have included variables. Say for example, like this one, Q1, Q2, Q3, assuming that this is my say
The factor.
yeah, this is my construct, exogenous variable. Okay. Then we could have gone for the similarly we could have gone for endogenous as well, like assuming that there are 4 indicators that actually explain our dependent variable, and then ten, 11, 12, and similarly the mediator, and then we are going to place similar kind of relationship between exogenous to endogenous, and then exogenous to mediator, and then mediator to endogenous. Is it done? Yeah.
Participants, please respond so that
Please keep responding. Otherwise, I will feel like I am
Yes,
disconnected.
sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now we have drawn our model. Now next, what we are going to do is that we are going to our analysis properties, and we are going to place a tick mark over those things that we actually require for our mediation. So importantly, we require standardized estimates, and most importantly, the indirect, direct, and total effects, because the whole mediation actually it revolves around direct, indirect, and total effect. So we are going to put a tick, and then if it is done, then go to bootstrap, and we need to perform bootstrap actually. In mediation, we need to perform bootstrap, and bias correctedness, confidence, to remove biasness in the sample, and we are going to place it at 95. Once we are done, we only need to take care of bootstrap and bias correctedness confidence intervals, only these two things. In output, we have placed a tick before standardized estimates and indirect, direct, and total effects. Now that's it. Now we need to run the analysis. No, we also, since this is our dependent variable, we need to place unobserved variables. Now we are going to run it. We got some values over here, 0.24, 0.16, 0.31, but we are more interested into knowing the direct, indirect, and total effect. So for that reason, we need to click on the output. Here is the output, and directly go to estimates. Estimates. If you look at, see, exogenous to mediator, once again, see, exogenous to mediator, here, exogenous to mediator, this is significant. This should be less than 0.05. So this is significant. Then mediator, this is mediator to, look at the arrow, it goes to endogenous. So from mediator to endogenous, it's again significant. Okay, so this one is significant, this one is significant. Let's see, exogenous to endogenous, exogenous to endogenous. So this is insignificant. This should be 0.05 or less than 0.05. So in a way, we can say that this is a full case, this is a perfect case of full mediation, because our exogenous to endogenous has become insignificant, and this relationship actually between exogenous to mediator and also mediator to endogenous, both are significant, highly significant in fact. If we go to the matrices and let's have a look at the standardized total effects. See, before looking at the total effects, let's have a look at the indirect effects. So indirect effect is 0.080. Okay, then this is also significant. So indirect effect, exogenous to endogenous. Okay, so and then look at direct effects. Yeah, exogenous to mediator 0.240, exogenous to mediator 0.240. This is, and then exogenous to endogenous 0.164, exogenous to endogenous 0.164. So importantly, we can draw a conclusion that our mediator actually explains the relationship between mediator and moderator. So it is a perfect case of full mediation. Why? Because the first relationship, that is exogenous to mediator, exogenous to mediator. Second relationship, mediator to endogenous, mediator to endogenous, both are significant. Unlike the third relationship between exogenous to endogenous. Okay, now quickly move to moderation. Hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Any question from anyone?
Let's quickly move to
Dr. Adil, yeah, Subhash has some question.
Dr. Adil, my question is how we got the endogenous and exogenous and mediator values in the table.
how you got that in the table.
Yes.
I think he's asking computation.
Data set. Yes. How we calculated the endogenous and exogenous values and a mediator value. Because we have those values already available in the data set.
So how did we actually compute? This is what your question is.
Yes.
So that is very simple. Like any other variable that we go for, say we have here transform, go to compute.
It's mean, I think.
No, his question is that
mean of items?
It is not a mean.
I think his question is like from where we got this mediator and exogenous and endogenous variable, like
right, sir, right.
So yeah, because see, say we have a questionnaire and there are say 10 questions, 10 items related to it. So 4 items, let's assume that 4 items relate to mediator, 4 items relate to independent variable, and remaining 2 items relate to dependent variable. Is it fine to follow?
Right, sir.
Okay. Then in that case, what we are going to do is that, see, then in that, I suppose that you have collected data, say this is your question number 1 and up to question number 10, and you might have collected responses from how many responses? Say I assume that you have approached 120 people and they have responded. So yeah, we have 10 questions. Assuming that first 4 questions relates to exogenous, next 4 questions relate to your mediator, and last 2 questions actually relates to your endogenous, that is dependent variable. So how can we actually convert them into variable? So because these are individual items. So first we need to go to transform, compute variable. Let's type it like exogenous variable. Okay. Then is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Then go to statistical here. Click on it. Then you will get a number of function over here. So we are going to click on sum, and the moment we click on double click it, and then you will get over here. So this question mark is need to be replaced by the number of items that we have. So as I said that for exogenous, we have say 4 items in our questionnaire. So I'm going to replace these question marks with the items. So first, question number 1. Always remember that we must have a comma right after any of the items that we place in between these this function. So question number 1 followed by comma, and then question number 2, then again a comma, and question number 3, then again a comma, and question number 4. Okay, that's done, because in this example we consider that there are 4 items that actually explain exogenous, and then we need to divide it by 4 to take a mean of this. Okay, sum Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 divided by 4. Had it been 3, so we could have gone for 3. Right now we have 4 items, so ultimately we are going for 4, and then we are going to press OK and then execute. Now we have this new variable which is known as exogenous. So that's how I have created my mediator exogenous and endogenous variable. Hope this answers your questions.
Okay, all are it's an average value of all.
Yes, exactly.
Sir?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Actually, I have tried to, and then I got the table of direct effect, total effect, and indirect effect. In that case, when I was finding that there was a mediation relationship, so I am not able to actually report it in that way, that direct, indirect effect and values. So can you
how it should be
explain?
reported? Yeah. This is what your question is, that how whenever we run a mediation analysis,
Yes, sir.
so how this should be projected or reported in your thesis or in your manuscript, something like that.
Because I got 3 tables in that. Yes.
Okay, so generally we have seen that researchers, what they do is that they try to compile those 4 or say 5 different tables into one. They try to combine it into one, because I don't know whether it is being demanded by the journals or it is being recommended by someone, but they try to combine it into one. Like I will give you an example.
That I was not able to understand.
Yeah, I will give you an example that how people they are doing it. Okay, let's take the example of this paper, and they have, see, first they have drawn the structural model and then they have shown mediation model.
Yes.
Okay, and let's see how they have actually reported it into their paper. See, results of mediation analysis, indirect effects between dependent and dependent variable. So since they have they have used process, probably, I'm not sure whether they have gone for PLS SEM or the process. Yeah, PLS. So that's the reason why they have got the LLCI and ULCI and boot LLCI and boot ULCI, these values. And as I said earlier, see, this is the direct effect. This is path A, and then we can see that this is mediator. So indirect effect, since the researchers, they have used 2 mediators, parallel mediation. So one mediator is this one mediator is this one, and then they try to establish the relationship between independent to dependent via these 2 mediators. And ultimately that has been, that has been explained in these 2 tables itself. See, CL and RI was mediator. So you can actually download this paper. You can download this paper and follow this paper. Ultimately, this is going to help you how to report it into in a manuscript or in a thesis.
We get different tables, sir.
You got a different table.
Yeah.
So did you use
I have
process?
read the paper also, and the effect has been explained in a different way. So I'm not able to.
We can discuss it at a later stage. I mean, this is one-to-one, so we can discuss it at a later stage. Okay.
Okay, fine.
I mean, that has nothing to do with the functionality of the mediation or moderation. Rather, how
it's a part of. Actually, I have also discussed in later on previous session also that they said that it's a part of mediation. So you will get to know about it in that mediation and moderation when we will discuss.
Let me complete the moderation and then I will directly come to this part. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Adil, I have one question, personal question, and not that much personal, but yes, related to this mediation wala thing. Is it compulsory to just compute the variables to just calculate mediation?
No, then this is not necessary actually. As I said previously, that we can take the indicators directly to the MS.
Okay, we can do that thing
exactly,
also.
Exactly.
Okay.
That could also be done.
Okay.
Just to save my time, I did it this way.
Okay.
Otherwise, that is also possible. Okay, then let's move to moderation. Hope this is clear. Always remember, mediation means why a relationship between X, that is independent and dependent, and relationship exists. Why this relationship exists actually, and it is being explained by mediator. So always remember, whenever we have to explain why something is going on, something is latent, something is hidden, then we try to introduce our mediator. Moving on from here. Now coming to moderator. Okay, moderator, most effects that scientists study are contingent on one thing or another. An effect may be large for women and small for men, or positive among certain types of people, but negative among other types, or zero for one category of stimuli, but not zero for another category. Again, I'm repeating that most effects that scientists or researchers study are contingent on one thing or another. So an effect could be large for women, but small for men, or positive among certain types of people and negative among other types, or zero for one category of stimuli, but not zero for another category. So when an investigator seeks to determine whether a certain variable influences or is related to the size of one variable's effect on another, a moderation analysis is the proper analytical strategy. Okay, so how moderator has been defined? An independent variable that changes the nature of the relationship. Now this is something important. Try to understand this one. That changes the nature of the relationship. Earlier, we were exploring the reasons for introducing mediation. So for introducing mediation is that why there is a relationship between X and Y. X is the independent and Y is dependent. So actually mediating a variable, it actually explains why there is a relationship between the independent and dependent, or how this the relationship translates into the dependent variable. So mediation tries to answer why there is a relationship. But here in case of moderation, we try to introduce a new variable that with an intent to change the nature of the relationship, changes the nature of the relationship between exogenous and endogenous. Okay, so exogenous is there, we have an independent, we have dependent variable, and then we are introducing another variable in order to find out whether it changes the nature of the relationship that usually exists between independent and dependent. Okay. So, for example, if a researcher examined the relation, we will discuss a couple of examples, probably that will make the concept of moderation more clear to you. So, for example, if a researcher examined the relationship between gender and math performance, a significant difference might emerge. Again, for example, if a researcher examined the relationship between gender and math performance, a significant difference might emerge. However, if teaching style were taken into account such that those who learn math by applied hands-on methods performed better than those who learned with traditional lecture styles, regardless of their gender. So teaching style, we are focusing upon teaching style. We are introducing teaching style, and then we are trying to find out the relationship between gender and math performance. And teaching style, it includes that students who have learned math by applied or hands-on methods in comparison to what? The traditional lecture styles. One could say that teaching style was a moderator of the relationship between gender and math performance, also called moderating variable. So teaching style is moderating variable. Now, the effect that occurs when a third variable changes the nature of the relationship. The effect that occurs when a third variable changes the nature of the relationship between a predictor and an outcome. This is independent, this is dependent. For example, SEM can be used to assess whether a predicted association between quantitative skill and performance fit equally well across different teaching style groups, so lecture-based versus hands-on learning. So the difference between mediation and moderation per se is the fact that in case of moderation, you will realize the fact that W, that is the moderator variable, it doesn't take any input from the independent variable. Unlike mediation, we have seen that in case of mediation, the mediating variable actually takes input from the independent variable, and then it translates it into the dependent variable. But here you will realize the fact that it doesn't involve itself into the model, rather moderating it, influencing it from a distance. Unlike mediation, which actually takes input from X and actually involves itself into the whole model, and then it translates it into the dependent variable. Here in moderation, see, you will in any of the model, you will realize that moderations always, they have an arrow on the relationships in between somewhere. Okay. So we will be taking this example like in moderation. See here, environmental orientation is our independent variable. For the next example that I'm going to take, so there I will be taking environmental orientation as independent variable, green apparel buying behavior as our dependent variable, and monetary incentives as our moderator. So environmental orientation, green apparel buying behavior, and monetary incentives. Further, what is environmental orientation? Environmental orientation is referred to as the degree of an individual's commitment towards environmental safety. It is the commitment of an individual, okay, towards what? Towards safety of the environment. How committed that individual is. How committed that individual is towards saving the environment. So ultimately, this is our independent variable, and then we have green apparel buying behavior as dependent variable. And in between these two, we have monetary incentives. And the hypothesis, the background of this model is the fact that we have seen a number of people who are highly committed, and they show their commitment by, I mean, verbally they show their commitments that yes, I am very much interested into saving the environment. Yes, people should collectively they should work towards saving the environment. But when it actually comes to practice, then you will find a drastic gap between their words and then their actions. So for that reason, we are trying to introduce a new third variable which is called as monetary incentives, or say discounts. Being, if marketers, they start giving certain level of discounts, cashbacks, e-wallets, money, something like that, and how this is going to actually change the relationship between these two. Hope it makes some sense. Yeah. So there are only 3 variables. Now moving on, let's see how can we actually run moderation analysis. So the very first thing that we are going to do is that, see, this dependent variable remain untouched. So we are going to place dependent variable. Yeah, the very first step we are going to do is going to test the relationship between independent and dependent. Then in step 2, we are going to test the relationship between moderator and the dependent variable. Again, step 1, the relationship between independent and dependent. In step 2, the relationship between moderator and the dependent variable. And in third step, this is the last step, and what we do is that we are going to take the interaction effect, that is multiplication of the independent variable and monetary incentives, that is our moderator. Okay, now I will take an example here. Yeah, green apparel buying behavior. Yeah. Here. So here, environmental orientation, independent variable, green apparel buying behavior, dependent, endogenous, and then we have used 2 moderators. One is environmental knowledge and the second one is monetary incentives. Is it clear? So now I'm going to take up the data set for moderation. Have you all opened the file?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So see, this is our independent variable as per the model. Environmental orientation. This is environmental orientation, EO, environmental orientation, simply variable. So this is our independent variable. GABB, green apparel buying behavior. This is our dependent variable. Yes. And then we have environmental knowledge, in short, EK. So here we have EK. Then monetary incentives. Here we have MI, monetary incentives. Importantly, we have to create interaction effect. Okay, so for that, we can go to transform, go to compute, and take, see, interaction effect could be created by multiplying the independent variable with moderator. So here we go to Again, go to transform, go to compute variable, write it down here. Like we have to find out, say, interaction of moderator 1. Okay, an interaction of moderator 1. And how can we create? We need to multiply what? Independent variable, EO, environmental orientation, C, environmental orientation, with EK, and again with incentives. So EO, environmental orientation, place multiplication sign, then this is environmental knowledge. EK is moderator. So we are going to place this as well. Now, once this is done, is it done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then press OK. Execute. Interaction. So we have created interaction effect. Again, let's go for the second one. For second one, we will go to transform. We will go to compute variable, reset it. Now we are going to name it like interaction underscore. This is our moderator number 2. And how interaction can be created? First, we will have to take our independent variable here. Independent variable is same. See, independent variable, environmental orientation. So in either of the cases, if we, while calculating, well, say interaction effect for environmental knowledge, environmental orientation will remain as it is. So our independent variable will remain as it is. Then put a multiplication sign. Then we are going to use mi variable. This is monetary incentives. Place it. If it is done, press OK. Execute. And then we got moderation 2. And at times I have seen people, they also do they use mean actually. So they divide it by 2 at times. Anyway, so since I have already created MIEO, this is monetary incentives and environmental orientation. This is an interaction effect, environmental knowledge, and EO. This is also an interaction effect for moderator number 2. So since I already have, so I will remove these 2 from my data set. Okay. So next, what we are going to do, we are going to run it in IBM MS. Just to save my time, I have already created this figure. I mean, you can use, as I have told you in case of mediation, you can similarly input the data file, then you can create the model. So here, if you look at this model, we have dependent variable. Here we have this is our independent variable, environmental orientation. Then this is our moderator number 1, MI, monetary incentives. This is our moderator number 2, this is environmental knowledge, and this is interaction effect of MI with EO. This is interaction effect of our moderator number 1, and this is interaction effect of our moderator number 2. That's it. Now what we are going to do in output is standardized. Now we don't need indirect, direct, and total effects. That was required in case of mediation, not in moderation. So we are going to place only standardized estimates, and then we are going to run it. And the moment you run it, you will find certain outputs. Okay, but we are more interested into going and finding out the result. So we will go to estimates. Okay, estimates. Here, see. So here we are more interested into unstandardized regression weights estimates rather than standardized regression weights. So we have to look this table only. So now let's start with the interpretation. So EO to GBB. This is our independent to dependent, and this is actually significant. Okay, now let's move ahead and let's see MI to GBB. MI, this is our moderator number 1, and this has to be tested against the dependent variable, and this is also coming significant. Let's first look at this one. So for each moderator, we need to test these 3 relationships. So since we have 2 moderators, so eventually there will be 5 relationships. Again, I'm saying that for each moderators, we need to test these 3 relationships. So even if I consider only monetary incentive, so in that case, we will have this one, then this one, and then this one, these 3 relationships. Okay, so let's have a look. Again, environmental orientation to GABB. This is significant. Then monetary incentives to GABB. Then monetary incentives to GABB. That is our dependent variable, and it is also significant. Now let's have a look at the interaction effect. MIEO, the interaction effect on what? On dependent variable. This is the interaction effect, and we need to test it on the dependent variable. So MIEO, GABB, this is also significant. But somehow environmental knowledge, if you try to check it out on a dependent variable, simply environmental knowledge as an individual variable, if we try to test it on the dependent variable, so it is not significant. And even the interaction effect between the independent variable and environmental knowledge that we have actually created, its effect on the dependent variable is also insignificant. So how to interpret this thing? So for that, we will take the help of this table. So once again, exogenous variable is significant. Let's see, exogenous is environmental orientation. Our dependent variable is green apparel buying behavior. So yeah, look here, environmental orientation, green apparel buying behavior, independent, that is exogenous, and endogenous. So let's have a look. Exogenous to endogenous, significant. So what does it say? Exogenous variable, if it is significant, then we will move and check about the moderator. The moderator is say monetary incentives. So let's have a look. Monetary incentives, individually monetary incentives to dependent variable, it is significant. Okay, so yes, it is also significant. Then we are going to test for the interaction effect, and that we have actually created by multiplying independent this one and this one. So interaction effect, we will try to find it out, and yeah, this one is the interaction effect and on the dependent variable, and we will see that this is again significant. So So when we have all the three significance values, so ultimately moderation effect is yes. Is it clear? Now going back to the environmental knowledge, another moderator that we have in our model, environmental knowledge. Now let's have a look. So for environmental knowledge, exogenous variable significant. Okay. Yeah. So in our exogenous variable is significant. Then moderator. Then we need to test moderator. So EK, this is simply variable. EK on this one is insignificant. So this is insignificant, not significant. Then we are going to look for the interaction effect. Okay, so interaction effect is EK, EO to our dependent variable, and ultimately this is also insignificant. So insignificant. So moderator and interaction effect both are not significant, although exogenous variable is significant, yet there is no moderation effect. So this is how we actually interpret it. And then how can we report it? It's reporting into papers. So let's have a look how people have reported it. See here. So since they might have gone for the process tool, so probably they might have got LLC, ILC. So yeah, moderation, yes. No. So this is how I mean they can report into table. Now another thing, one step ahead of the say once you got all these values, so next thing that we generally go for is the creation of this graph. How can you do this? You can take a mean of your variable, whatever your variable is. So here I have taken like monetary incentives. You can take a mean of this. So any value below that mean will be called as low. Any value above that mean will be called as high. Okay, similarly high and low your that one independent variable, and ultimately you need to draw this using SPSS. Then once you have converted those values into low and high, so ultimately that is going to be projected into your SPSS and you will get this graph. Okay, so now this graph actually shows what? Now this graph actually explains a lot of things. See, moderator, low MI, high MI. High MI means high monetary incentives, low monetary incentives, low environmental orientation, high environmental orientation. See, when an individual who is less committed towards saving the environment, so irrespective of whether you are going to offer highest level of discounts or monetary incentives in any of the forms, be it low, be it high, it hardly matters. So an individual who is less committed towards environment, who hardly thinks about saving the environment or contributing towards saving the environment. So be whether the marketers, they are offering high monetary incentives or low monetary incentives, it doesn't make any sense. He will not start consuming green, eco-friendly or environment-friendly products. But see, for the case of high environment oriented people, those who are high on say environment commitments, and they think about it, but somehow they are stopping themselves from buying any product. So if marketers, they come up with certain level of policies or strategies which through which they can offer actually some sort of monetary discounts, monetary incentives, or even something like that. So there is a high chance that these people would be converted into actual buyers. They will start consuming the things. Now this is something important that is meant for marketeers. So high monetary incentives, if being offered to those people who are actually committed, So if you ask me, if I have to replace a battery in my clock, so probably if I go to market, I will get it in 8 rupees or 10 rupees. But if I am highly committed towards saving the environment, and if I really think seriously about saving the environment, then I will explore the options that do we have certain batteries, do we have certain brands that offer batteries which are eco-friendly, environment friendly. And always remember, environment friendly products, they come for they charge premium price for them for that. So many a times we feel that although we are interested into saving the environment, yet there are certain things that stops us. So one could be our monetary burden that is going to be on our pocket. So if marketeers, they come up with some strategies and they start offering us a certain level of discounts, so probably a highly committed person, he will be transformed into the actual buyer, and he will start consuming the same thing. And the same thing happens with environmental knowledge. So we see, many a times I say this thing, that whenever you use any variable, be it a mediator, be it moderator, why did you use it? That is not a big deal, because ultimately you are going to use it and the software is going to give some result. But you need to have certain level of justification and rationality for using and justifying the result that you have obtained. So here I have said that people are stopping from consuming the green based products or environment friendly products just because they are highly price conscious. They are price conscious, price sensitive people, and probably that is deterrent from say consuming environment friendly products. They might be thinking about contributing to environment safety, yet they are not actually involving themselves. Why? Because there are certain factors, which are stopping them, barrier which could act as a barrier. So when we talk of environmental knowledge, and if we say that we have obtained that environmental knowledge doesn't come out to be a significant moderator in our case, so we can explain this in our manuscript, in our research paper, that people, they might be aware of, although they are committed, and they might be aware of the products and policies of the government, the policies of the marketeers. They might be aware of the existence of the environment friendly products into the market. So that is not a big motivator for them to actually start purchasing. However, in case of monetary incentives, this could act as a big motivator for such kind of persons to start consuming the environment friendly products. That is how we can actually justify our moderators in our manuscript. And I tell you, I can show it to you, that in one of the research papers, reviewers, they have started commenting that why you have checked the moderation effect on one or two relationships. Why not on all the relationships that you have actually proposed in your model? So use of mediation and moderation is quite important from the perspective of, like, when we are trying to draw some meaningful insights from the model. Why there is a relationship between dependent and independent, or independent and dependent exist. This could be explained by a mediating variable. Similarly, moderation, it moderates the relationship between the independent and dependent. It explains a lot of things. Okay, so that's how we stop here. Any questions?
Participants, if you have any question, you can ask Dr. Adil. Dr. Adil, the paper you were just showing off, actually,
Yeah.
It was having 3 independent variables, I think.
Yes. Just for the sake of participants' understanding, I have used only one independent variable. Yeah.
That means actually you have checked this moderation effect on all the 3 independent variables.
To be honest, we started with only one relationship actually, but then the reverse comments were like this, that service quality can be a moderator. Oh, sorry, not in this case. In another paper, we received the comments from the reviewers, which says that your moderator can be tested on all the relationships that you have actually proposed in your model. So these days, actually, why I'm emphasizing upon moderation and mediation is the fact that these days those papers are highly, accepted. Chances of acceptance is quite high if we have used either moderation or mediation or even both. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else who is having any kind of question?
I'm sorry for the technical glitch in the initial phase of our
we can understand.
Lecture.
The problem is we were trying to call you and then
at times
it was switched
off.
It
happens, yeah.
So no issue. So who was she? We have Karuna, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Karuna. Yeah, but please conclude the session.
Thank you, sir. In spite of some technical glitch in beginning, all participant remains present online.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for this very informative and interesting session. I really thank you in with very simple example you quoted throughout the session, which makes this technical session and these technical terms easy to understand for all the participants.
I hope so.
I'm sure sure that it will be very useful for all of us, and we will use this in various interdisciplinary research work.
Yeah.
Now I request organizers to send a feedback link in chat box. I also request to all fill this session feedback link, which will remain open only for the next 10 minutes. I announce the third session of day 2 of this ATAL FDP organized by Department of Management SBMS is concluded successfully. Thank you so much to all participants, and thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karuna.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Adil.
Thank you, Dr. Asad, Dr. Jamshed. Thank you so much.
We need a few volunteers for we need to